Hey, welcome back! Today we're solving a really interesting mobile system design problem: how to build the YouTube app. We'll dive into the API and data model, break down the app architecture, look at common video streaming protocols, and see how everything fits together. YouTube is a huge platform with tons of features: uploading videos, watching, commenting, live streaming, creating playlists, subscriptions, and many more. Today we'll focus on the most important features for mobile: the home feed and the video player. Let's look at the mockup. We have two screens here. First is the home feed, and the second one is the video player. On the home feed we have a list of videos, and for each video we show the thumbnail, channel name and picture, video title and view count. When a user clicks on a video to watch, we show the video player. It has the video itself streamed there, a settings button to choose video quality and subtitles, the title, view count, posted timestamp, channel name, like and dislike buttons, and at the bottom a comments section. Let's start with functional requirements. First up, we need a home feed that shows suggested videos. Then, of course, a video player that lets you play, pause and skip to different points in the video. We also want the ability to hit the like button. Oh, and speaking of that, don't forget to like and hype this video. It really helps promote the channel. In the settings, users should be able to change the video quality. For example, 180p, 720, and so on. And finally, there should be an option to turn subtitles on and off in multiple languages. And for non-functional requirements, let's first address scale. We need to support 100 million daily active users, which is close to real YouTube numbers, so we'll need to optimize for that. We also need to support streaming large video files up to 256 gigabytes. That's the maximum upload size YouTube allows. That means we can't download the entire file to the device. We need to stream it in chunks. And also we need low latency streaming, since people watch on 3G or slow networks, so we should be able to adjust the quality and still play smoothly. Alright, what's out of scope? Authentication. We can assume it already works, and we have some sort of session ID or bearer token we pass with each request. Video uploads and comments are also out of scope. Okay, that's it for the system requirements. Let's move on to the API and data model. I'll define them in parallel, with API on the left and data model on the right. This is one of the ways to do this. Alternatively, you can start with the data model first and then go into the API. We'll use a classic REST API over HTTPS with JSON payloads. So, the first method we need for the home screen is a method to get videos. Get videos, chart, most popular. The chart parameter just lets you pull videos from a preset list, like the most popular ones. You can also narrow it down by category or region if you want. We also need a region parameter like region equals UK. And we need pagination, because the list is infinite. We'll get 20 videos at a time using cursor-based pagination. The first request won't have a cursor, but subsequent ones will. This method returns metadata and an array of video snippets. What is a video snippet? Let's define a data model for this. Basically, it's a short representation of a video that will show on the first screen. So, we need a few key things: the video ID, the title, and the thumbnail URLs, usually multiple sizes so it looks good on different devices. We also want the channel name, the view count, an integer, and finally the timestamp for when the video was posted. Next, when we click on a video, we'll need another API call, something like get videos/video ID. This will give us the full video details, including things like video ID, video snippet, video description, and channel info. The channel itself would be a separate object in our data model with things like channel ID, name, channel thumbnail, image URL, and subscriber count. We won't dive into comments here, so let's skip that part. But what about liking or disliking a video? For that we need post/video/video ID/rate. This method takes a rating parameter which can be like, dislike, or known for removing a like. Additionally, we'll need a user-like data model to store our likes locally and enable us to implement offline liking in the future. The main fields would be user ID, video ID, and rating. Now, if we want to fetch the current rating for a specific video, we can call get videos, video ID, rating. Next, the big topic for us today is how to implement video playback. When designing a video streaming app like YouTube, a smooth user experience is really important. The main thing to understand is that we don't want to download the whole file, which can be really big, up to 256 gigabytes. Instead, we want to stream it to the device. That means downloading small chunks, usually 2 to 10 seconds long, and processing them accordingly. This approach lets us start playback immediately after just a few seconds are downloaded, download more chunks in the background as the user watches, and clear all chunks from memory later. This works well in mobile environments such as iOS and Android. So, how do we actually do that? We could implement it ourselves, but this problem is already solved. There are existing protocols we can use. The most common ones are HLS and DASH. HLS was created by Apple. It is widely adopted and works well on both iOS and Android. DASH is an open-source alternative. It follows similar principles as HLS but offers more flexibility. Both protocols support a really important feature called adaptive bitrate streaming. It automatically adjusts video quality based on network conditions and device capabilities. For example, if you're watching a video and your phone switches from fast Wi-Fi to slower 3G, the protocol will automatically start downloading the next chunks in a lower resolution, like 720p instead of 180p or 4K. This way, playback stays smooth, which is really important. Now, how do we include this in our API? These protocols use something called a manifest file, which is basically a list of URLs for video chunks in different resolutions. Here's a simplified example of a manifest file. We have separate arrays for each resolution: 240, 720, and 1080p. Each array contains the URLs for all the video chunks, usually a few seconds each. The player looks at these arrays and decides which resolution to download based on the device and current network conditions. The first step is to get the URL to get the manifest file. Then feed it to our local video player to start streaming. Go-to players are AV Player on iOS and Exo Player on Android. They use this manifest file to handle streaming out of the box. On mobile, memory management is mostly handled by these libraries. They automatically keep a few chunks in memory and clear old ones. You'd only need to do extra management if you want custom preloading or offline support. So we need to add an API method, get videos/video ID/playback. We pass the video ID and optionally an array of supported streaming protocols from the client. The backend returns a video playback object, which in the simplest form contains video ID and a manifest URL, the URL to download the manifest file. That manifest file then allows the client player to initiate streaming. The manifest can also reference subtitle tracks, usually as separate streams. Each language can have its own track, and the player can switch between them on the fly. For example, English, Spanish, and Chinese subtitles would each have their own entry in the manifest, which the player reads and displays in sync with the video. This also means we can easily add or remove languages without touching the main video, and users can turn subtitles on or off whenever they want. Okay, cool. Now, let's move on to the high-level design. First of all, we'll split our design into two parts, the client and the backend. Let's start with the backend. We'll have an API gateway as an entry point for our REST API and HTTP requests. All our video files are stored in cloud object storage, like Amazon S3. Popular videos are cached on a CDN, which brings content closer to users by storing video chunks and manifest files at edge locations around the world. This makes playback fast and reduces load on our main object storage. We don't cache every video, just the popular ones, since most traffic comes from those, because caching everything would be expensive and inefficient. Now, let's move on to the client-side architecture. I'll divide it into three layers: presentation layer, domain layer or business logic, and data access layer. This follows the clean architecture approach as well as Google's guide to app architecture. Starting from the presentation layer, on iOS I'd use Swift UI, and on Android, Jetpack Compose. Both are modern declarative frameworks that handle UI state automatically, so you focus on what the UI represents rather than manually updating views. It leads to cleaner, more maintainable code, especially for dynamic app like YouTube, where the feed and player UI change frequently. I'll be using the MVVM pattern, model view view model. In this setup, each view has a corresponding view model that holds its data and state. So we'll have a home view with a home view model and a video player view with a video player view model. For both the home screen and the player, our view models will manage a simple state, something like loading, success with the actual data, or an error state. This keeps the UI in sync and makes the code really predictable. Both the home view and the video player view will need an image loader for things like thumbnails and channel pictures. We could build it ourselves, but usually it's easier to use modern tools. On iOS, that async image, and on Android, a popular choice is Coil, which works great with Jetpack Compose. And for the video player view, the most important thing is integrating a video library. AV Player on iOS and Exo Player on Android. These handle video playback on the device and allow us to implement pause, start, seek, or skip features. Next, in the domain layer, we usually have entities responsible for business logic, often called use cases or services. I prefer calling them services. Here we'll have two of them. Video service, responsible for everything related to videos, and video playback service, responsible for video playback, getting the manifest file to initiate streaming. Now, let's talk about a key optimization in the video service, metadata caching. We don't want to hit the network for every single user action. A simple and effective strategy is a cache-first approach. For the home feed, the service would first check the local database. If you have valid, non-expired data, we return it immediately for a fast user experience. If the cache is empty or stale, say older than 10 minutes, then we call the network. When the network response comes back, we update the local cache and then update the UI. This gives us the best of both worlds, fast load times and fresh data. We can get more sophisticated with this. For instance, we could prefetch and cache the next page of videos in the feed while the user is browsing. Note that this caching is for metadata, not actual video files. Video chunks are handled by the player via CDN. On the data access layer, to keep things simple, we can have just one network client or remote data source and local storage or local data source. The network client is responsible for making HTTPS requests to the API gateway. We'll use URL session on iOS and OKHTTP on Android. For local storage, we can use a relational database, often wrapped in an object relational framework, core data on iOS and Room on Android. Alternatively, if we want the system to be more extendable, we can introduce the repository pattern, with separate repositories for different data types. That would add another entity in the data access layer. The repository pattern is more common in Android development, following Google's guides, while iOS apps usually use service layers for data abstraction. So for our case, I'll use an iOS-style approach using services. Also, note that our AV player or Exo player will work directly with cloud storage or CDN via HLS protocol. We don't need to implement networking logic for it. We just initialize the player with the manifest file URL we get from video playback service, and the player automatically handles HLS streaming, fetching chunks either from the CDN or from object storage. Finally, we'll wire everything together using dependency injection. At first, we can just do it manually, passing dependencies through initializers. But as the app grows, we might bring in dependency injection container, either custom or with a third-party library. That way, all our dependencies are registered and resolved in one central place. Another big topic we need to cover is background audio playback. On iOS, the way to enable this is through AV audio session. You configure it with the right category, usually playback, and then declare it in your app's capabilities that you support background audio. Once that's done, AV Player can keep playing even when the app is in the background. The system also shows playback controls on the lock screen and in Control Center, so users can pause, skip, or adjust volume without reopening the app. On Android, you can't just play audio in the background without a proper service. The right way is to use a media session and media browser service. Your service runs player in the background and the media session tells the system your app is active. This makes Android show a persistent notification with controls and stops the system from killing your app. Exaplayer hooks into this easily. You set up the session, connect your player, and the system handles the lock screen controls and notifications for you. Alright, let's now talk about picture-in-picture, something users really expect in modern video app. On iOS, AV Player View Controller supports PIP out of the box. Just enable allows picture-in-picture playback, and the system handles the floating window. If you're using a custom player, you use AV Picture-in-Picture Controller. On Android, you declare it in the manifest and call Enter Picture-in-Picture mode. The OS shrinks your activity into a floating window, and you can add controls like play and pause. The nice part is, both platforms manage the window for you. Your job is just keeping playback smooth, handling state transitions, and making sure controls still work. Alright, a quick recap. We built an app architecture using a 3-layer approach and MVVM, used HLS protocol for adaptive video streaming, and leveraged powerful native players. That's the core blueprint for a modern mobile video app like YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.